Friday, 8th May 1987, just after 7 in the evening. A blue Toyota Hiace van rolls through the village of Loughgall, lock-gall in the local pronunciation, in County Armagh. It passes the RUC station and keeps going. The station looks dead. It's a part-time station, open 9 to 11 in the morning and 5 to 7 at night, and the attack has been timed for after the evening closing. Behind the van, a stolen JCB digger follows at a distance. In its bucket, packed inside an oil drum and hidden under rubble, sits somewhere between 200 and 400 pounds of explosive, wired to two 40-second fuses. 2 scout cars shadow the convoy. 8 men are on the operation. All belong to the IRA's East Tyrone Brigade, the same unit that had already wrecked 2 RUC bases with this exact tactic. Ballygawley, December 1985. 2 officers shot dead, the barracks destroyed. The Birches, August 1986. A digger with a bomb in its bucket crashed through the perimeter fence and the station was raped with machine gun fire. Loughgall was meant to be the third, the proof that the tactic always worked. The van makes a second slow pass, still nothing. According to the reconstructions, the silence reads as wrong to the men inside. They debate whether to call it off. They go ahead anyway. The digger accelerates. It crashes through the light security fence and jams against the station wall. Declan Arthurs, 21, is at the wheel. With him on the machine are Tony Gormley and Gerard O'Callaghan, in journalist Peter Taylor's phrase, literally riding shotgun, with weapons in one hand and a lighter in the other. The van pulls up a short distance ahead. Patrick Kelly, the unit commander, jumps from the passenger seat and opens fire on the building, the others following. Then the station answers. 24 soldiers of the Special Air Service, 6 inside the building in plain clothes, 18 concealed in 5 positions in the trees and hedges around it, open fire without warning. At the inquest, the SAS men said they gave none. According to one reconstruction drawing on ex-RUC Special Branch Officer John Shackles, the soldiers had strung detonating cord along a line of fir trees opposite the station. It was exploded seconds before the shooting began, a flash and crack to freeze the IRA team for the instant the guns opened. The bomb in the digger's bucket detonated anyway, the blast destroying the machine and badly damaging the building. 2 RUC officers inside were injured in the explosion. The IRA gets off 78 rounds. The SAS fires more than 1,000. 600 spent British cartridge cases were recovered from the scene. The van alone took around 125 bullet holes. When the shooting stops, all 8 IRA men are dead, each hit multiple times, all of them with head wounds. 2 were unarmed when they died. Declan Arthurs, the digger driver, was still holding a cigarette lighter in his right hand. A civilian, Anthony Hughes, is also dead. Driving home in a white Citroën GS after repairing a lorry, he entered the ambush zone roughly 130 yards from the station and was mistaken for an IRA support vehicle. Soldiers opened fire from behind. His brother Oliver, wearing blue coveralls similar to the IRA men's boiler suits, was hit 14 times and survived. The Citroën took 34 bullet holes. A mother and child sheltered in the church hall after a stray bullet hit the rear window of their Ford Sierra 250 yards from the station. The villagers had not been warned. No attempt was made to evacuate anyone or seal off the ambush zone. That might have alerted the IRA. Loughgall was the IRA's largest single loss of life in the entire Troubles. The British operation had a code name, Operation Judy. The security forces recovered 8 firearms from the dead, a mix of automatic weapons and other firearms. The RUC linked those weapons to 7 murders and 12 attempted murders in the Mid-Ulster region. The revolver had been stolen from a reserve RUC officer killed at Ballygawley 2 years earlier. Every man in that unit believed the operation was secret. British security forces had intelligence about an IRA plan to attack a station in the area weeks before 8th May. The best public reconstructions, including the 2019 BBC documentary Spotlight on the Troubles, A Secret History, put knowledge of the specific target at around 10 days out. The station's own officers had been quietly withdrawn. The building had been turned into a trap. Someone told the British. And for nearly 4 decades, the name most people reached for has been Gerry Adams. The Adams theory has its roots in a real document. A declassified Irish state memo records a letter from the priest Father Dennis Fall to the government in Dublin, relaying a rumour doing the rounds that the IRA team at Loughgall had been set up by Gerry Adams himself. The alleged motive: Jim Liner and Padraig McKinney, the unit's senior figures, had reportedly threatened to execute Adams over his push toward constitutional politics. Sinn Féin called the claim utter nonsense. Ed Maloney, the journalist who documented the theory's background more thoroughly than anyone, has stressed what the record shows. No documentary evidence names Adams as a British source for this operation. No intelligence file, no court record. The Boston College tapes don't supply it. Maloney's own reporting adds a twist the rumour never absorbed. Liner and McKinney weren't loyal Adams men who'd been betrayed. They were planning to break away from the provisionals entirely, frustrated at the leadership's turn toward constitutional politics, convinced resources were being diverted to Sinn Féin, and determined to keep fighting. A theory that makes Adams the man who burned them has to explain why he would destroy a unit that was already destroying itself. It never has. This channel has made the Adams case twice and concluded, both times, that the material does not establish him as the informer. The fuller record keeps returning to a different name: Tony Gormley. Gormley, 24 years old. One of the 8 men who died in the ambush. Sources disagree on his age, which is its own small monument to how little the public record settled. The contemporary Republican obituary in An Phoblacht, published 6 days after his death on 14th May 1987, says 24. Several later accounts say 25. The most detailed biographical profile places his birth in September 1962, which would make him 24 when he died. The rest of the record is firmer. Gormley came from Cranalome, near Galbally in County Tyrone, the second oldest of 6 children, raised by Anthony and Annie Gormley. He left school at 16 and trained as a fitter welder. By his early 20s, he ran his own engineering subcontracting business, employing 12 people, with the prospect of inheriting land from his father. The Loughgall Truth and Justice Campaign, the group formed by the families of the dead, described him as quiet, single-minded, socially easygoing. A young man who hated injustice. His family traced his turn to the IRA to the 1981 hunger strikes, and specifically the death of Martin Herson, which they said had a profound effect on him. He joined the Provisional IRA that year. The security forces knew him well before Loughgall. The family campaign records frequent harassment at police and UDR checkpoints and house searches. He was detained for 7-day periods on quite a number of occasions, never charged with any offence. That pattern, repeated detention without charge, was standard practice in the mid-1980s counter-insurgency. Pressure, disruption, and an opportunity to try to turn a source. Whether anyone tried to turn Gormley isn't documented. Whether anyone succeeded is the question at the centre of this story. At Loughgall, he wasn't in the van's gun team. He was out on the machine, riding the digger itself alongside Arthur's, weapon in one hand, lighter in the other. His job was to make sure the bomb went off. Taylor's description of the two men on that digger is one of the most haunting details in the entire Loughgall record, because of what it implies. Two armed volunteers riding an explosive-packed construction vehicle into a station yard, completely convinced the operation was still secret. If Gormley was also something else, a paid source for Special Branch, then he rode into the ambush beside 7 men he may have helped doom. The East Tyrone Brigade's signature was the digger and bomb assault on a rural station. After Ballygawley and the Birches, British intelligence knew the unit would try again. The question was where and when. The warning they received was early and specific. The Pat Finucane Centre, which published the most detailed accounting of the operation, states that British forces had at least 24 hours prior notice of the IRA's intentions to bomb the unmanned barracks. The operational record shows they had far more. McGill magazine's 2007 investigation said the SAS had known of the plan for at least 24 hours beforehand and probably a number of weeks. The strongest public synthesis, drawing on the 2019 Spotlight documentary, puts detailed knowledge of the specific target at around 10 days before 8th May. That foreknowledge shaped every stage of the operation. The 3 local RUC officers who normally ran the station were quietly pulled out. On the evening of 7th May, around 8:30, 24 SAS soldiers and members of the RUC Special Task Force were briefed at Marne Road Barracks in Portadown. The next day, 6 soldiers in plain clothes took up positions inside the station, alongside a uniformed RUC constable kept visible to preserve the appearance of normality. 18 more lay concealed in 5 positions around the village. The IRA took its own precautions. The bomb was ferried by boat across Lough Neagh from Ardbow to Maghery to avoid the checkpoints. The digger was hijacked from a farm at Lislashly Road, about 2 miles west of Loughgall, with 2 IRA men left behind to guard the owners. The van was stolen by masked men from a business in Dungannon. It didn't matter. A covert observation post watched the digger move and radioed it in. Undercover soldiers from 14 Intelligence Company drove the back roads around Loughgall, shadowing the unit as it closed in. And there's the detail the men themselves noticed. 2 slow passes at a station that looked dead. Something was amiss. They debated. They went ahead. The level of foreknowledge matters because it narrows the possibilities. Pattern analysis and routine surveillance can tell you an attack is coming somewhere in a region. Knowing the exact station, the exact evening, the approach route, and the timing. Enough to evacuate the garrison, pre-position 24 soldiers, and let the unit walk within feet of the wire before firing. That points to a source. The question is, what kind? The literature offers 3 competing explanations, and none can be ruled out on the public record. Theory 1. A human source. an informer inside or close to the unit. The historian most often cited is Richard English, Professor of Politics at Queen's University Belfast and author of Armed Struggle, one of the standard academic histories of the IRA. English's reported position is careful, and for the simplest version of this story, it's a complication. He is reported as arguing that the specific intelligence for the Loughgall ambush didn't come from within the 8-man assault unit. But he also noted that one member of that unit, Tony Gormley, was known to security forces as a well-paid special branch informant. A separate book makes the wider case. Agents of Influence, Britain's Secret Intelligence War Against the IRA, published by Merrion Press in 2021, was written by Aaron Edwards, not Richard English, a distinction worth making because the two are routinely run together. Edwards's argument is that by the 1980s, British intelligence had penetrated the IRA at every level, and that operations like Loughgall were the payoff. The public record of the book doesn't pin Loughgall on one named man. Its argument is broader and arguably more corrosive. The East Tyrone unit was never operating in a secret world at all. Supporting detail for a human source accumulates around the edges. A London Review of Books profile of the operation noted reports of a high-level informer who tipped off the RUC 6 weeks before the attack. A 2007 McGill investigation identified a British agent named Colette O'Neill, whose house was used by IRA team members, and claimed a phone call was made from her house on the morning of the attack. That account is single-sourced. A Daily Mail report on the Informer War claimed that several weeks before the attack, someone who knew it was going to happen contacted MI5 directly. Again, one tabloid source. Neither can carry the case alone. Both are consistent with it. The strongest circumstantial argument for a human source is the shape of the ambush itself. The British knew the target, the date, the route, and the vehicles. They evacuated the station and let the unit assemble before firing. That degree of precision is the signature of an agent's report, not a lucky intercept. And then there's what happened after. The IRA launched an internal investigation into how the operation was compromised. The investigation was run by the Internal Security Unit, the Nutting Squad, whose most senior figure was Freddie Scappaticci, the man British intelligence knew as Steak Knife, a British agent reporting to the Army's Force Research Unit while hunting informers for the IRA. Martin Ingram, the former FRU officer who wrote the Steak Knife book with journalist Greg Harkin, recalled a fellow handler telling him that in Derry City alone, 1 in 6 IRA volunteers worked for the FRU, before RUC special branch coverage was even counted. The IRA's hunt for the Loughgall leak was run by a man whose loyalties belonged to the other side. Per the BBC's reporting on the Steak Knife affair, the investigation didn't find out who was responsible for compromising the operation. That dead end has fed an explanation circulating in the literature ever since. The informer, if there was one, died in the ambush. It fits the shape of the case almost too neatly. An informer inside the unit was uniquely placed to report the plan in detail. His death would explain why the IRA's inquiry found nothing, why no one was ever exposed and executed, and why the security forces never had to protect a living source whose cover might eventually blow. It would also mean the state was willing to let the SAS kill its own agent rather than expose him. The name attached to that explanation is Gormley's. Across the secondary literature, he is the individual most commonly named in connection with the tip, always as allegation, never as proof. Theory 2. Signals and surveillance. Security sources have maintained that the intelligence came from electronic monitoring and physical observation, not from an informer in the unit. One repeated detail in that account: a known IRA man was observed scouting diggers in the area in the days before the attack. A known figure was also spotted in Dungannon around the time the van was hijacked, the kind of sighting that fits an observation-led picture rather than a single informer's tip. Noel Russell, writing in the London Review of Books, argued that it now seems more likely that the ambush resulted from surveillance of known IRA figures and of the movement of weapons and explosives. The British did maintain extensive signals intercept capability in Northern Ireland, and their decryption of IRA communications is documented in the broader record. What no one has produced is a specific intercept tied to the Loughgall plan. None has ever been made public. Theory 3. A hybrid. An agent somewhere in the support network. A safe house, a phone line, the boat crossing on Lough Neagh, feeding information that was fused with signals and observation into a single operational picture. The hybrid has a structural advantage over the other two. It accommodates Richard English's reported view that the leak didn't come from inside the 8-man team, and it accommodates Gormley's documented status as a paid special branch source. He may not have known the target until the day itself. Someone else may have carried that detail. But the intelligence architecture that doomed the unit would still have run, in significant part, through him. Weighing the three is the work the literature has actually done. Thomas Leahy, whose academic work on informers and agents is the most thorough treatment of the subject, described Loughgall as the direct result of good intelligence and excellent coordination. Note the word he chose: intelligence, not informer. Mark Urban, whose book Big Boys Rules remains a standard account of the SAS's secret war, framed Loughgall as the most spectacular manifestation of intelligence-led ambushing. The official position has never named anyone. In 2016, a Belfast High Court judge heard that nearly 10 million intelligence records would need to be examined to answer civil proceedings over the killings. More than 9.5 million of them, according to a senior police officer's affidavit. Here's what the record actually supports. Richard English, the historian most often cited on the question, has written that Gormley was known to Special Branch as a well-paid informant, while reportedly doubting that Loughgall's intelligence came from inside the unit. Aaron Edwards's Agents of Influence makes the broader case that agents were everywhere in the IRA and that Loughgall was one of their successes. The secondary literature that has grown around the ambush keeps returning to Gormley's name. Put those layers together and the honest synthesis is this: Gormley is the strongest individual candidate the historiography has. Proof that would settle it has never been released. The forensic reports from the 1995 inquest describe where Gormley fell. He was found lying face upwards near the Toyota van, his head partially under it, dressed in a blue boiler suit with red rubber gloves and a hood. Death was due to bullet and fragment wounds. He was killed at the scene, beside the 7 men he may have betrayed, or beside the 7 men he died with, innocent of an accusation that has followed his name for 38 years. Both possibilities are real. If he was the source, Gormley walked into an ambush his handlers watched him enter, died among the men he'd sold, and took the secret with him. That would explain why the IRA's investigation found nothing, and why no official record has ever confirmed it. If he wasn't the source, then historians and internet commentators have floated an innocent dead man's name for nearly 4 decades, with nothing to answer it. The community that buried him denies the accusation. People who knew him have insisted he wasn't a tout, and that he had no operational knowledge of Loughgall before the day. That claim sits against the reported intelligence record. Neither side can produce the document that settles it. No special branch file, no payment ledger, no debriefing report identifying a Loughgall source has ever been released. The archive has never been opened. The legal aftermath ground on for years. In September 1988, Northern Ireland's Director of Public Prosecutions concluded that the evidence didn't warrant prosecuting anyone over the shootings. The families of the dead and of Anthony Hughes pursued civil proceedings against the Ministry of Defence. Anthony Hughes's widow settled her case out of court in 1991. In May 1995, an inquest ran for 4 days and returned the same finding for all 9 dead: death by serious and multiple gunshot wounds. The SAS soldiers didn't give evidence; their statements were read out. Lawyers for 6 families withdrew on the second day after the coroner refused to provide them copies of the witness statements. In 2001, the European Court of Human Rights ruled that the failure to conduct a proper investigation had violated the dead men's rights. The security question had casualties of its own. On the 20th of March 1989, RUC Chief Superintendent Harry Breen, the officer who had briefed the media at Loughgall the morning after the ambush, was shot dead near the border, along with Superintendent Bob Buchanan. 2 decades later, the Smithick Tribunal, an Irish judicial inquiry, concluded that Breen had been targeted so he could be abducted and interrogated about how the British had advance warning of Loughgall. For the IRA leadership, the leak was the most urgent problem the defeat had exposed. The men killed that evening became the Loughgall martyrs. Thousands attended their funerals, the largest Republican funerals since the hunger strikes of 1981. Gerry Adams, the same Gerry Adams of the informer theory, spoke at Gormley's graveside. A declassified Irish diplomatic cable dated 15th May 1987 records his words. Margaret Thatcher and Tom King and all the other rich and powerful people will be sorry, in their time, that Loughgall happened. In the decades since, Gormley has been commemorated as a matter of course. A Sinn Féin cumann in Killishall, County Tyrone, carries his name. An Phoblacht still publishes the anniversary notices. His family, and the families of the other 7, spent years campaigning for disclosure through the Loughgall Truth and Justice campaign, a campaign whose central complaint was that their loved ones had been demonised out of recognition, denied even the ordinary dignity of public grief. The East Tyrone Brigade tried again. In September 1990, it attacked the Loughgall station with a £1,000 van bomb. The inquest into the first attack had been scheduled to start that same week. The station, still unmanned, was badly damaged. The brigade rebuilt its operational core after Loughgall, but it never recovered the men it lost that evening. This channel has told the Loughgall story twice, and twice it pointed its audience at Gerry Adams. The Fuller record says something different. The best supported candidate for the Loughgall informer is one of the 8 dead. A 24-year-old engineering contractor from Galbally who rode the digger into the trap his own history may have helped set. Nobody officially knows. 38 years on, that is still the position. The documents that would end the argument, if they exist, sit inside an intelligence archive that has never been opened. But the weight of the evidence has a name. Not the one this channel gave its audience before. Tony Gormley, who died at Loughgall on the 8th of May 1987 in the ambush his presence may have made possible.